Our story revolves around the hero Ikaruga Natsuki, a boy who lost his mother and his leg in an accident a few years ago. After a harsh life in the big city, he returns to find his old countryside home half swallowed by the sea, left without a family. All he has is the ship and submarine left to him by his oceanologist grandmother and her debts. Our episode begins with our hero, Natsu, dreaming of a painful scene from his past where he was involved in a terrible accident that caused a building to collapse on him, leading to a severe injury in his leg that resulted in its amputation. Natsu wakes up from his dream to find the girl, Catherine, beside him in the room. He asks her what she is doing there, and she tells him that she has brought something that will make him incredibly wealthy. He asks her to stay away from him, saying her attempts to seduce him won't work. Natsu then attaches his prosthetic leg, and Catherine tells him that things will work out this time because one of her trusted acquaintances assured her that this device is successful and sold it to her. Natsu replies that she is deceived by such talk every time. He washes his face and tells her she will die a horrible death if she doesn't take life seriously. Catherine gets angry and tells him to try and stop her first, then gives him the device. Natsu takes the device, saying it's better than the previous ones. He then leaves, talking to himself, saying he doesn't mind as it's not like he has anything else to do in a world like this. When he climbs to the deck, we see that he is on a ship in the middle of the sea. Catherine is seen sitting alone, listening to the news on the radio about the launch of a rocket that will be the first step in the implementation of Project Amaterasu, which is a large-scale energy source. She then asks Natsu if it will work this time. Natsu tells her yes. Catherine then asks if, given the time and money to launch a massive rocket, they could at least find a solution for their living conditions. Natsu responds that everything will collapse even if they manage to sort things out for now. Catherine asks him if the ship will survive underwater. Natsu tells her it was her idea to go underwater and calls her old woman. Catherine gets very angry and says, "My name is Catherine, and don't call me an old woman again." Suddenly, a girl named Minamo appears and asks Natsu to go to school with her, but he ignores her. Catherine says to Minamo it looks like he refused. "You need to know when to give up when it comes to love." Minamo gets angry and tells her it's not like that. Natsu tells Minamo to stop talking, saying she's just a scammer who showed up with some shady deals. Catherine interjects, saying Minamo is not a scammer and that the existence of a treasure in her grandmother's house is real. Minamo asks who his grandmother is. Natsu tells her she is the marine geologist Professor Nonko Yachigusa. The plan is to use this device to retrieve the treasure from his grandmother's house, referring to the submarine. Catherine then asks if the submarine is ready. Natsu tells her that the part she brought is working. Catherine is very happy and then asks if they will enter the ocean with this submarine. She says it's dangerous and they should be concerned about their lives. Catherine tells her that they need the money no matter the cost. Otherwise, how will they survive in this world? Minamo then asks Natsu if he trusts Catherine and if she won't betray him after finding the treasure. Natsu asks her if she wants to come with them, as it has been many years since the submarine entered the ocean, and he needs as much help as possible. Minamo says that's not fair. Natsu explains that there was a sudden rise in sea levels around the world, and coastal towns near sea level were surrounded by the ocean. The reason for this is still unknown, though sea levels rose due to global warming, and there are many similar theories, but none have been confirmed. After the sea level rose, it was never the same as before, causing the loss of many cities and infrastructure, and even now it continues to consume more and more land. Natsu tells the girls he will enter and close the hatch behind him. He asks Minamo to release the hooks and asks Catherine to operate the crane. He then sits in the pilot's seat and starts the submarine. Catherine asks Minamo to release the hooks since they don't have much fuel. Minamo releases the hooks, and Natsu tells them he is diving in a shallow area and knows well where he is going, but he needs to go at least once. If no one goes down there, they might be lost at sea forever. The submarine descends into the sea, reaching their city, which had sunk underwater due to past events. Natsu informs the girls that he has found the city and begins searching. They see many fish, and suddenly, Natsu discovers a stasis capsule with a girl sleeping inside. He says she must be a human android, but she doesn't look like a doll. He lifts her using the hooks. Suddenly, the girl opens her eyes, frightening Natsu, causing him to lose control of the submarine, which crashes into the ground. Natsu recalls the painful past accident. Suddenly, he sees the girl outside the submarine trying to get in. Natsu orders his friend Minamo to pull the rotation lever. Natsu then brings the submarine to the surface of the sea and starts crying. He looks into the water and sees the girl, then quickly dives into the sea to save her. Then his prosthetic leg falls to the bottom of the ocean, but he says, "This is beautiful. I can see the sunlight." At that moment, the girl he saw below comes to him and kisses him. They emerge together on the shore, and they ask who this girl is and if she is a human android. She confirms that she is. They are amazed because they had never seen an android so lifelike before. They start thinking and realize that production of human-like androids had ceased a long time ago, meaning she is likely very valuable. One of his friends says they shouldn't sell her without permission. The android tells them that selling her without her mistress's permission would be illegal, and her mistress is Miss Nonko. Natsu approaches her and says, "I'm sorry, but your mistress passed away a month ago due to a severe illness." She responds, "Is she really dead? Well, may she rest in peace." Everyone is surprised at how calmly she takes this news, but they realize it's normal, because everything she says or does is just programming. She is an android and doesn't feel emotions. The android then learns that Natsu is her mistress's grandson and says, "I look forward to working with you, handsome boy." He replies, "My name isn't Handsome Boy since Natsu." She introduces herself as Atri and explains that when an android is given a name, it signifies that they are recognized as a living being, one of the valued attributes of her high-performance self. Then one of their friends, the red-haired girl named Minamo, leaves and says to them, "Make sure you don't sell her before I get back from school." "I won't be long," Catherine asks. "What are we gonna do?" Natsu replies, "I don't have the resources to keep a high-tech android with me. Not to mention I need to do something about this leg." They leave the place, but they find her slow. Natsu reassures her an android cannot disobey its master's orders. She stops and says, "This place is very new to me." Natsu tells her this place has changed a lot in the past few years. When he asks her how long she has been asleep, she replies, "Asleep. Was I sleeping all this time? I don't know. It seems all my memories are lost." Noticing she is barefoot, Natsu says, "Let's go to the market to buy you some shoes." Atri starts choosing a suitable pair of shoes, and when she finds one, she is very happy. She said, "Yes, because you have been kind to me." Then Natsu falls to the ground. Atri runs to him and checks on him, then helps him up until he says he is fine, explaining that he has an old model prosthetic leg. He takes out his walking stick and starts moving again as they go to the buyer who intends to purchase Atri. After examining her, the buyer finds that she is a fourth-generation model from the Yamazaki manufacturer and writes down her price on a calculator. They are thrilled with the amount as it could change their lives. But Atri says, "Wait a moment before selling me. My previous mistress gave me an order before I went into that long sleep. I want you to wait until I fulfill that order." When they ask what the order is, she thinks for a moment and then forgets the information. Everyone is surprised because she is a robot and can forget things like a human. The scene shifts as they leave the place, and Tree can't believe she forgot something so important. Natsu remarks that he is surprised the dealer gave them such a high price despite her being a piece of scrap. Atri gets very angry and says, calling a robot scrap is against the anti-robot discrimination law. Catherine then tells Natsu that she will take Atri with her for today, wait until she gets a good deal, and will call him when she finds a suitable buyer. They ride off on a bike, but Atri's shoe falls off. Natsu runs to catch up with them, but unfortunately he cannot. He finally arrives home, relaxes on his bed, and recalls some difficult events. While he is lost in his thoughts, he is surprised to see Atri in front of him. She tells him that she will be his leg from now on, and so our episode ends here. Stay tuned for the next episode, but don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get all the updates. Our episode begins with the robot, Atri, telling Natsu that she will be his leg. He is very surprised by her statement, so she explains that a robot must be useful to its master since he cannot run or jump well with his prosthetic leg. She holds his hands and asks him to rely on her because she is very strong. She then lifts him onto her shoulders, runs towards a small boat, and flies into the sky with him. They both fall into the sea together. The next morning, we see Atri puzzled as she didn't succeed in making the jump. Given Natsu's weight, she should have easily managed the jump. She tells him they should try again, and Natsu asks her what she is doing here since she was supposed to go with Catherine. Atri explains that Catherine ran away. After they parted ways, she continued walking with Catherine until a car appeared behind them. When she asked Catherine who they were, Catherine said they were debt collectors and told her to get off the bike because they couldn't both escape together. Catherine told her to hide nearby and that she would come back to get her. Atri got off and Catherine fled. Returning to the present, Natsu realizes this is why Catherine never stopped talking about money. Atri starts preparing breakfast and tells him she is high performance. Then, she drops an egg, causing a fire in the kitchen. She panics and doesn't know what to do. We then see the girl Minamo walking and talking to herself, saying she wishes Natsu would come to school with her because school is so much fun. But he would laugh at her if she said that to him. Suddenly, she sees smoke rising from the ship and runs quickly. Natsu and Atri come out and tell Minamo that they have put out the fire. When Atri starts to speak, Natsu stops her. She explains that making such human-like mistakes is proof that she is a high-performance robot, since ordinary robots wouldn't be able to make mistakes even if they tried. Natsu warns her that her mistake almost cost them their home. He then tells her that he is going to sell her because having a piece of junk like her around could cost many lives. Atri gets angry and tells him that calling a robot junk is against the anti-robot discrimination law, as it is offensive and clearly discriminatory. Natsu responds that he is not discriminating against robots in general, but specifically talking about her. Atri warns him that she is very angry and might have to use her rocket punch. Natsu reminds her that robots cannot attack humans and grabs her hands to take her with him. Minamo interjects, saying that his decision is wrong because Atri is the humanoid robot that his grandmother cared for, so he should look after her. Natsu agrees, saying that if his grandmother left something important behind, there should be some record of it. He decides to investigate and goes into the submarine. He returns with some of his grandmother's belongings, saying these are the only items he could find. Minamo asks Atri if these items remind her of anything. Natsu opens a book, searching for records about rising sea levels or anything related to upcoming weather modifications, as his grandmother was an oceanographer deeply concerned with these issues. Atri suddenly understands and says that his grandmother wanted her to stop the rising sea levels using her power. She believes she might possess the power to control the ocean and save the world. She then asks to show them her power and approaches the ocean, attempting to use it, but fails. Natsu comes closer and hits her on the head, asking what she thinks she is doing. He then asks if she remembers anything about his grandmother. Atri admits she doesn't remember anything at all. Minamo suggests they all go to school together since all the children go there, and they might discover something about Atri that could help her remember. Atri mentions that the word school sounds familiar to her and begins to think deeply. Minamo and Natsu eagerly ask Atri if she remembered anything. Atri replies that it's lunchtime, which makes Natsu lose hope. He tells her he will sell her since keeping her around is pointless. Atri asks if he wants to sell her to get a new prosthetic leg and suggests she could become his leg and help him do anything he wants. Natsu refuses, saying he can manage on his own, and orders her to leave before he walks away. The scene shifts to Minamo and Atri walking together. Atri asks if it's right to leave their master Natsu alone. Minamo explains that sometimes humans need some time alone. They arrive at Minamo's house, and she tells Atri that her father is the regional chief, but has gone to the mainland and wants her to join him. However, she stayed because Natsu returned, and many people still live in the city, so she is not alone. As they drink tea, Minamo mentions that Natsu doesn't like hot drinks and prefers his tea slightly cold. She knows a lot about him because they've been friends since childhood. She says Natsu is very intelligent and attended the academy on the mainland, claiming he would save the world and make life vibrant again. He studied hard and was a candidate to join a crew for a weather modification rocket research mission. However, he was excluded due to his prosthetic leg. Despite this, he continued to work hard, but the rising sea levels postponed the rocket launch indefinitely. Atri asks if Natsu wants to go to space on a rocket, offering to fulfill that wish for him. Minamo tells her that it's very difficult and assures her that Natsu won't sell her. She is confident that Natsu loves her and won't part with her. She advises Atri not to ask too many questions and to stay by Natsu's side, as it would be very beneficial for him. That night, we see Atri returning to the submarine. She enters and finds Natsu sleeping on the bed in an unusual state. She places her hands on his forehead, and he opens his eyes. She tells him he is not well and she needs to wipe his sweat so he doesn't get cold. Natsu grabs her hand, tells her not to worry about him, and asks her to stay by his side. He rests his head on her lap and tells her to call him Natsu instead of Master. The next morning, Natsu wakes up screaming, realizing that the night before he was not in his right mind and had asked Atri to sleep beside him. Atri tells him he is much kinder than she expected. This angers Natsu, and he hits her on the head. Atri angrily responds that waking a sleeping robot is against the robot protection law. Natsu demands she delete anything related to the previous night from her memory. Atri tells him she cannot erase such memories because he asked her to stay by his side and slept on her lap. Natsu screams and orders her not to mention it again. Later, we see Atri standing beside Natsu, brushing her teeth. She complains that she cannot brush her back teeth and asks for his help, saying it is the owner's duty to maintain his robots regularly and that she would fetch a higher price if well maintained. Natsu helps her and then tells her he won't sell her for now. The main deal was to split the money with Catherine, but since she is not around, selling Atri without her consent would cause a big problem. He also asks Atri not to talk to anyone about what happened the previous night. Atri mentions that Minamo told her that Natsu had fallen in love with her, which is why he wouldn't sell her. Natsu yells at her and Atri tries to calm him down, telling him she loves him very much. Natsu threatens to tear her apart and delete all her memories himself. At that moment, Minamo enters and sees Natsu holding Atri's head angrily. She calms him down, and they all sit together at the table. Natsu tells Minamo that Atri deserved his anger, and that he will discuss the matter with Catherine and sell Atri immediately. Minamo suggests that since Atri will stay with them until Catherine returns, they should all go to school. When Atri asks Natsu if he will go with them, he refuses. Consequently, Atri also refuses, stating that she must stay by her master's side. Natsu tells her he doesn't want her to do that. Minamo points out that she knows he doesn't want to go to school, but it's the only school left in the city. Once it's gone, they won't be able to attend any school. She then leaves. The scene shifts to Atri and Natsu as they go to fetch some food and water. Natsu explains that the infrastructure is broken, so they still can't use electricity or gas, and they don't have running water. They fill up their water containers and then go to get some food. Atri finds a can of potato chips and asks Natsu if it's edible. He tells her it is, but advises her to put it back because many children come to that place, and they would be disappointed if they found no chips. He explains that they must consider both themselves and others. He recounts that there were people who only thought about themselves and took whatever they wanted. But they left the area a long time ago. Those who remain are people who don't have enough money to leave. They climb to a higher place where Natsu points out the windmills and explains that the mainland used to be visible from beneath those windmills. Back then, they were still connected to the mainland, and the place wasn't as devastated as it is now. Atri comments that despite everything, the town is still beautiful. She mentions that a girl like Minamo, who is wealthy, still chooses to live in this town even though she has the option to move to the mainland. Some people don't leave because they love it here, and perhaps that's why Nanko wanted to stay and save the town. Atri then spots a rocket and asks Natsu if it will ever fly. Natsu tells her that it will fly one day. He is sure of it. They head back home, and on their way, Natsu stops and tells her they have taken the wrong path to a place he has never been before. Atri says this place is not in her memories either. Natsu asks if the place doesn't trigger any memories in her. Suddenly, Atri asks if this place is the school. We then see Minamo, and Natsu and Atri approach her. Natsu asks Minamo to look after Atri the next day. Atri looks at the school and feels a strange sensation from her past memories. When Minamo asks her what's wrong, Atri says it's nothing and that she's fine. And so, our episode ends here. To follow more new episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all the latest content.